Hey everybody, this is Poiab from Your Own Pathway. I hope you all are doing very well today. I actually wanted to do this episode for a very long time, and I actually recorded an episode, and unfortunately, my sound was not working. I think that was a universe sign of telling me that, you know what, and do it again. So, here I am with my new haircut, doing this episode again for my YouTube channel called Your Own Pathway. As I mentioned, I've actually wanted to do this episode for a very, very, very long time. And the name of this episode is called Four Cautionary Tales to Save You. And I really think everybody can benefit from this episode. And I'm going to say this that I especially wanted to do this episode for all the women who are watching this, who are listening to this. And I will explain why I feel that this episode will help so many women, and it's actually my intention to do this episode for women. Now, everybody can benefit from these four cautionary tales, and especially women. I want women to be aware of the things that I'm going to discuss today. And the reason why I say women is I've been in this field. For those who don't know, I'm a trained social worker and I transitioned to being a mental health therapist. And as a social worker, even if you're a social worker, we all work in various capacities. And our main job is to help people connect with resources. And a lot of people are under the assumption that only poor people or marginalized or low socioeconomic clients need social workers. And that is not true. Everybody can benefit from a social worker. And that's why, because everyone can benefit from a social worker, I've worked with some of the most marginalized people in the communities, and I have worked with some of the most well resourced people in the community. And this is just my experience as a social worker and a therapist, and anybody else who is a social worker or a therapist may have different experiences than I do. And so I wanted to share my experience and what I see so that I can help empower anyone who is watching this to ensure that you have all the resources, all the knowledge out there so that hopefully if any of this ever happens to you or if you've seen other people go through this path and the hardships that they've gone through that my hope is that you would think twice or that you would really think more about the decisions and the choices that you make. And I just want to emphasize that no way at all am I trying to blame the victim, blame you as a person, shame or judge you if you have gone through these situations that I'm going to talk about. And it's more about how to learn from these situations so that hopefully this doesn't happen to you, or if you know someone that you can help them. So that's why I wanted to do this episode. So without further ado, let me discuss number one. And the number one cautionary tale that I want everyone, and especially women, to be aware of is have your own resources. I'll say that again, have your own resources. And when you hear resources, the automatic assumption that it's about money, it's about finances. And yes, I am not going to disagree. Having financial freedom and having finances is so important because let's be honest, money gives you power and options. And if you don't have money, you lack the power, you lack the decisions, you lack the choices. And so money is very important. And that leads me to talk about, having your own job. Now, this does not mean that you can't be a housewife or stay home mom. It just means that you have to plan financially, that you and your spouse, partner, whoever it is, have to plan to ensure that you do have the financial resources in case there were any hardships for you. Another resource that is so important to have is have an education, have a trade, or have a skill that makes you marketable. And I have seen a lot of women who choose to stay at home, which is perfectly fine, who, after raising their children, try to go back into the workforce. And right now in 2024, it is so hard for people to find a job already who have the education, have the skills. And if you are a stay-home mom or stay-home parent, I want to say stay-home parent, who is trying to get back into the workforce, a lot of times you are also competing with those who already have the skills, who have the knowledge, who are up to date with their skills. And so an employer likely is going to choose someone who is up to date with their skills and up to date with the knowledge, up to date with everything that they need for this position. And so it's important to have an education, have a skill, and be up to date with whatever it is that you want to work in. Another resource is having your own support system. Now, I know that when a lot of people get married, sometimes that support system is not a priority because you are putting so much emphasis in raising your children and your family that a lot of times I see a lot of moms who no longer have the support system where their children and the identity of being a mother is everything for them. So, ladies, please, please, I know life is busy. I know you're putting all your effort into raising your family. However, it is so important to keep up to date with your support system because when things go wrong or when things are hard or when there are situations where you don't have the support of your spouse or your significant other, having your own support system is so, so, so essential, especially if there are any issues related to domestic violence. Sometimes the abusers can try to have everybody go against you, and your support system, that support system was your support system, and you no longer have that support system. So it feels very isolating. So if you become a mom, that's perfectly fine. Just ensure that you have your own support system. Ensure that you have the one friend or whoever it is that can support you emotionally when you are going through really tough situations. Other situations that I've seen, I know that having a car can be a privilege for a lot of people, and some people live in areas where you don't need a car. And if you live in an area that you don't need a car, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly great. However, in America, here, in a lot of our cities, most of us need a car. And in working with my patients and my clients, unfortunately, some of them don't know how to drive or have access to a car, and that really isolates them where their abuser, and when I say abuser, I don't always mean a significant other. It could be family. I work with a lot of young women and women who come from families that are very abusive, emotionally, psychologically, and often these are um, women of immigrant families where they are they don't want their daughters to go out or shame or do anything which they consider bad, and so they try not to give the daughter or like the client that I work with like any type of resources so that they feel stuck and they feel isolated, so that they will be dependent on the abuser. So if you can, and if you live in an area where having a car as a transportation is your form of transportation, please, please at least learn how to drive and have a driver's license. Have a driver's license and have some form of transportation, because if there's a situation where you need to get away, you can get away. Other resources to have that I see that is so essential for women to have access to all the financial institutions, all the bank accounts, anything. I have worked with so many women from all various ages, socioeconomic statuses, some of them don't have any idea about the financial situation of their families. And they will say, well, I don't know. I just, that's my husband's job. I don't do any of that stuff. And before you think it's just older women, that's not true. I work with a lot of millennial women. Actually, a lot of my clients are millennials where they have a significant other or they're married, and I asked them about their financial situation and they just said, I don't know, that's something that my husband deals with. And so please, please, I know we think it's only older women who have concerns related to finances and not having access to their finances, but that is not true. Millennial women, please, please be involved in the financial decisions of your family. If you're watching this, please, please, please have your own resources. That is going to save you. That is going to give you so much more. When you have resources, you can get away. When you have resources, you are in charge and you're not stuck. And again, this goes beyond money. And also, money is a very important, powerful tool to have. So, the more resources that you have, the more you can be in charge and you can leave situations that are no longer beneficial or at times can be dangerous for you. So, number one, always have your own resources. Moving on, the number two cautionary tale that I want all women to be aware of, and you're not going to be surprised at what I say next, is who you marry. Who you marry can certainly make and break you. And I'm not anti marriage, I'm not anti wedding or anything like that. I unfortunately have seen way too much of what happens when a woman marries the wrong man. And I'm going to say man because most of the clients that I work with and most of the patients I work with are heterosexual and have relationships with men, marriages with men, or long term relationships with men. And I'm going to say marry where you are legally, where there's marry where there's legalities to the relationship. And so, as a social worker and as a therapist, most of my work and most of my interactions are with women. And let me clarify that even though my clients or my patients may be male, most of my communication as a social worker and as a therapist are with other women. And I will explain why it's with other women. Even though my patients may be men, my interactions and my communication is often with women. And it's often with women because women are mainly the caregivers. They're the ones that are doing the communications. They are the ones that are part of the care plan. They are the ones calling and needing the resources to be the caregiver for their husbands. And as a social worker, I have worked with so many women from all different cultures, all religions, all socioeconomic status. And that's when I realized that regardless of how rich or how poor you are, we all deal with the same things. And being married to the wrong person and to the wrong man will do a lot of unfortunate things to your mind, your finances, your body, your spirit, your soul, everything that you can think of. And this is not to bash men or anything. This is just to say be very careful as a woman on who you choose to build your life with. And I unfortunately saw a lot of what happens or the aftermath of the marriage or of what happens when their husbands do not take care of themselves, like emotionally, physically, financially, whatever it is. I see a lot of women who I would consider having it all. You know, they went to school, they went to college, had a great job, traveled the world, did everything that what was what was told that they should do. And when they get a certain age, like in their 30s, they start feeling the panic, they start feeling the pressure. Everybody starts asking them, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? They start getting the shame, they start getting ostracized by everybody, society and everybody, and they feel this panic. They feel this panic that they need to settle down because everybody else around them is also settling down. And so they start everything that they said that they would look for, that they want, they start their expectations, or I don't want to say their expectations, but their threshold that they had for themselves starts kind of going down because they allow fear and judgment and shame to dictate to them on what they want best. And so what I see happen a lot, unfortunately, is that they reconnect with an ex from high school or someone from their past or someone who usually they would not have given a chance give them a chance because they feel like they need to fill this expectation and society expectation of what everybody is telling them that they should do. And so usually when they reconnect with this person from the past, this man, this person is usually divorced, has children, has had maybe even one or two marriages, and they're now divorced. And the woman and this man reconnects, and it's like, oh yeah, we're building this wonderful life together. You know, we're traveling. Let's get married. And they get married, and then the husband has all of these like health and other things that they haven't worked through, and there's a reason why they're divorced. And now they're the husband's like health and finance and unresolved mental health becomes the new wife's problems. And unfortunately, I saw a lot of this, especially in caregiving and especially in social work, um, where the woman's new spouse has all these things, and now they're the caregiver for their spouse, and it's even more challenging when they don't have children together. Like the woman and her husband don't have children together, but the husband has children from his previous marriages, and more often than not, it's if there's young children who still have visitation rights, it's often the new wife that is communicating with the ex-wife about visitations and about planning and about vacations, and it's not the husband who is doing this. So the woman takes on a lot of the husband's lack of communication, lack of like focusing on their health, lack of family drama that they had in the past with their exes. And now that husband is bringing all that to the new wife, and the new wife has to learn and has to deal with all the issues that the husband is bringing to the new wife. And I get it, you know, if the wife is aware of all of this, if you are a woman who is aware of everything that your husband is bringing to you and you're okay with that, that's fine. That's perfect. Like, that's perfectly. Unfortunately, a lot of women are not prepared for this. They're not prepared. They think that they can handle it. And then it's so much more emotional work than they anticipated, that their health is now being impacted because their husband is bringing his unresolved issues to the new wife. So, ladies, be careful of who you marry. And if you are someone who wants to get married and have children, go for it. However, please vet. Please know who you are marrying. And if there are any red flags, listen to your intuition. Listen to your intuition. And ladies, please, 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 if there are any unresolved issues, if you have any unhealed trauma, if you have any unhealed wounds, seek therapy. Go get therapy, work through your issues, because if you don't go heal, go work on your issues, unfortunately, you are going to attract the unhealedness too from other people. And other unhealed people can see other unhealed people. And so go to therapy, go work on yourself. Don't let other people shame you. Don't let other people's expectations of you be what you take on, and get to know yourself. Get to know who you are, what you want, what you don't want, and your boundaries. Work on your boundaries. Work on your boundaries. You don't have to accept anything less just because other people think that you should. So don't accept anything less. Go work on yourself, and you deserve the best, whatever that is, and go work on you. And so don't settle just because everybody else thinks you should settle. So, number two, be careful of who you marry. Moving on, ladies, number three should not come as a surprise for most of us. Who you have children with is so, 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 so important. I cannot emphasize more on cautionary tale of who you have children with. And anybody who knows someone sees what happens when you have children with the wrong person. And again, this is not to shame, this is not to judge, this is not to say, I told you so. And this is for if you knew who that type of person who they were, and they had all the red flags, everything was like shining brightly right there, and you still chose to have a child with this person. Or if you knew deep down that you didn't want to have children and this person wanted to have children, and you still decided to have children to make other people happy. And I've seen too much. I've seen way too much of what happens when you have children with the wrong person. And if anybody is watching this who is a therapist, who works as a teacher, who is a divorce lawyer, I'm sure you all can relate, or the work that you do, you see a lot of this. And who you decide to have children with ha- unfortunately has a lot of, could have potential a lot of consequences for you, for them, and especially for the child or the children that who is the parent. And whew, my goodness, my work as a social worker, as a therapist, I've seen what happens too much when children are born to unhealthy people. And when I say unhealthy, I mean emotionally, psychologically, where there's a lot of generational trauma and generational curses that keep generating from generation to generation. And a lot of people say, well, you know what? I just have to wait until my child's 18, where, I don't have to deal with like my child's father anymore or my child's mother. Unfortunately, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond the 18 years, because there is so much emotional harm, psychological and emotional harm that has happened to that child and to possibly you, even if you decide to divorce the father of your child or the mother of your child. There are long term effects, not just for the child, but for you also, where there could be a lot of trauma, even if it's like there's a lot of trauma. And when I say trauma, I talk about the abuse, and it's just not physical. When people think of abuse, people think of only physical. I'm talking about like the spiritual, the psychological, the emotional abuse that someone endures when they are in a relationship with the wrong person and has children with the wrong person. There are long term repercussions for having children with the wrong person. Who, again, it's not to shame, not to judge, not to say I told you so, and who you have children with impacts not only you, but your children's life forever. And a lot of us think, well, once a child's 18, it's not going to matter. It's things happen longer than 18 years. Things happen longer than 18 years. And if you are a person, and especially if you are a woman who is having reservations about having children, you're not sure about having children, and you meet someone who wants to have children and you're not sure about that, please, please, please be on the same page with that person. And what I mean is that not that you have to have children with that person, but really, really know yourself and ask yourself, do I actually want to have children? Because I've seen way too much of what happens when a woman decides to have children for the sake of having children because she thinks that she needs to have children, or her mother in law or her mother wants children, or her husband wants children. And internally, she's like, I don't want to have children. I just don't want to have children. It's like, well, you should have children. You should have children for the sake of having children. Children are going to save you. Children are going to save your marriage. It's going to make it better. And no, no, children are going to test the both of you. And if neither of you or your spouse or significant other, if one of you has any reservations about having children, you need to work through, either as a couple or as individual, and decide what is best for you. Decide what is best for you, and it is okay to choose you. It is okay to choose you. And before you have children, if you decide to have children, I highly recommend that the both of you who you decide to have children with go to therapy. Go to therapy. A lot of people think that, oh, children are so cute, they're gonna make things better, they're gonna make my relationship stronger, we're gonna love each other more. It's gonna test you like you've never been tested before. So please, 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 please consider who you have a child with. Again, instead of creating generational wealth, we pass on way too much of generational trauma and generational curses to our future generations. Cautionary tale number 3 is who you decide to have children with. All right, how are you all feeling here? I am going on to my last cautionary tale here, so get ready. All right, everybody, we've done 3. So just to recap, number 1 is have your own resources. Number 2, be careful who you marry. Number 3, be cautious of who you have children with. And number 4, cautionary tale that I want everyone to be aware of, and especially women. Hang in there, and we are at cautionary tale number 4. And for anyone who knows me, they may not know this, but I'm going to tell you something about me. So, one of the things that I love to calm down and to really decompress from is I love to watch a good unsolved mystery show or a good detective or murder show. And my favorite thing to do is to have a cup of tea and watch unsolved mysteries or unsolved murder cases. And to me, that is so relaxing. I know that is so counterintuitive, and I cannot be the only girl who loves to do that. So, unresolved. So, if you are a girl who loves to watch her murder shows, I'm your girl too. And One of the things that I notice, I don't know if you got all noticed this. I promise I have a point here, is that whenever they interview the loved one or the victim of the loved one, I always hear them say, it doesn't happen to people like us. It happens to other people. Bad things don't happen to people like us because we are good, caring people. Only bad things happen to other people. You see that in TVs, you see that with other people, but it never happens to us. And there it is. Cautionary tale number 4 is we all think we're the exception. We all think that we are the exception, that nothing bad is going to happen to us, that it's only going to happen to people. And one of the things that I'm going to talk today that may trigger some people is a recent election. Why so many people voted for Donald Trump because they didn't think that was going to happen to them, that they were good people, that they are a loving family, and that it only happens to bad people. Good things don't happen to good people. I mean, bad things don't happen to good people. Bad things only happen to bad people. And because of that belief, we throw caution in the air. We don't think that it's going to happen to us and that we are always the exception because we are living a good life. We believe in God. We do everything that we're supposed to. And the unfortunate part is that anything can happen to any of us. You can live the best life, you can be kind, you can do everything right, and you can eat right, you can exercise, you can meditate, you can do all that, and shit still happens. And so, cautionary tale number 4 is that you are not the exception. I'll say it again, you are not the exception. You're not the exception. And because you're not the exception, always, always be cautious. And I'm not trying to say that, oh, you should always live your life in fear or anxiety. It just means that pre plan and be aware that things could happen. Things can happen to anyone. I see this a lot in situations in relationships where, and I'm going to call out ladies, I'm going to call us out because we are notorious for this. We think that we are the ones that are going to change someone, that we think that we're the ones that are going to save someone, that we're not going to be like the other women. We're not going to be like the other relationships. So we're going to be understanding. We're going to be loving. We're going to be there for that person. We're going to support them. We're going to give them everything that they never had, like the other 3 women couldn't. We're different. We're the exception. And then you realize that, holy shit, I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like all the other ladies. I am not like, that thing. I'm not like other girls. No, no. I am exactly like other girls. I am exactly like other women. When you get a situation, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, maybe they were not the crazy ones after all. Maybe he's the crazy one, okay? When the narrative, oh my God, they're so crazy. Oh, they weren't supportive. Oh, they didn't do this for me. And you go and you're like, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one that saves him. I'm going to be the one that's the exception. I'm going to be the that loves him. I'm going to give him everything that he never had. And then you realize, oh my God, this is so much work. Now I see why that happened with like the other situations. Or you think that you're going to be the one that saves someone, or that if you only give enough, if you only give and give and give, that you're going to make a difference in someone's life. And then you realize that you depleted yourself, that you're burnt out, and that you keep giving and that you never gave back to yourself. And then you resent that person. You start disliking, or you have all these negative emotions that come up. And again, this is not to shame, judge, or blame you for your feelings. And if you're in a situation where you are feeling all those feelings that I just mentioned, I would really ask you to look within, seek help, and really find out, or really look to see why you are doing the things that you're doing. And so Cautionary tale number 4 is you are not the exception. You're not the exception. Anything can happen to any of us, and being cautious, planning, being aware, working on yourself, recognizing what you feel are red flags, what you're willing to tolerate, what you're not willing to tolerate. Most importantly, have your boundaries. Boundaries. I know boundaries is a buzzword right now, and boundaries is truly the first step in what you need to forge your own path and to own that path. And I'm actually going to do another episode about this. Um, Steps to forge your own pathway, and boundaries is the number one thing that you have to establish for yourself. And to clarify, boundaries is not about other people. Boundaries is about you and the expectations and standards that you set for yourself, not for other people, but for yourself. So boundaries are expectations and standards that you set for yourself on how you're willing to be treated, what you're not willing, what you're willing to accept and not accept. Tale number 4 is that you are not the exception. So, how are y'all feeling? Let me recap everything. 4 cautionary tales for everyone, and especially women, to be aware of is number 1, have your own resources. Number 2, who you marry. Number 3, who you decide to have children with. Number 4, you are not the exception. And I had a lot of fun doing this episode. So if you are new to my channel, please hit the like and subscribe button, and feel free to comment and share your stories or thoughts down in the comments below. So thank you again. This is Poiab from Your Own Pathway, and I will see you all next time. Take care.